Hello and welcome to the first episode of a non-existent podcast where I present to you my findings about AI. I want to talk to me 4 months ago, or really I want to talk to anyone who is in a creative space, an ambitious artist looking to make a full career in the creative space or have had a successful career, and you're worried about what AI means for the future. Me 4 months ago, I was aware enough of AI to know roughly what was going on and to know that it was scary, but not enough to really sink my teeth into it and to talk about it intelligently. So I want to take the next few minutes and present to you exactly what AI is, exactly what it can and cannot do in all of the different fields, and what that probably means for you as a creative professional. So we have to start right at the beginning and define the term AI. The term artificial intelligence and AI, as it's used in the pop culture zeitgeist right now, doesn't mean anything really. The way that people use the term AI could apply to basically any process or anything that you do on any computer ever. So we need to understand what artificial intelligence is and how it's different from regular software. And instead of trying to come up with some fancy definition, I'm just going to let NASA talk us through it. Now, throughout this podcast, I am going to be quoting from other people quite a bit. I'm going to use their quotations fairly extensively. Please sit with me through these quotations because the length is important because of the nuance and the context that these experts who know far more than me actually use. So let's read through the beginning portion of this essay from NASA where they actually discuss what is artificial intelligence. Defining artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence refers to computer systems that can perform complex tasks normally done by human reasoning, decision-making, creating, etc. There is no single simple definition of artificial intelligence because AI tools are capable of a wide range of tasks and outputs. But NASA follows the definition of AI found within EO 13960, which references Section 238G of the National Defense Authorization Act of 2019. Now, that's a lot of references. It's people referring to people referring to people. Essentially, EO 13960 was an executive order by President Donald Trump in 2020. And it talked about the wise and proper use of artificial intelligence by the United States government. And that executive order referred to the Section 238G of the National Defense Authorization Act of 2019. We're not going to go look at this executive order or the Defense Authorization Act, but it's good to note that NASA is actually referring to other governmental precedents. And so we can be fairly confident that this list that NASA is about to give us of the examples of use of artificial intelligence are essentially artificial intelligence according to the United States government. So here we go. Here's the bullet list. Any artificial system that performs tasks under varying and unpredictable circumstances without significant human oversight, or that can learn from experience and improve performance when exposed to datasets. An artificial system developed in computer software, physical hardware, or other context that solves tasks requiring human-like perception, cognition, planning, learning, communication, or physical action. An artificial system designed to think or act like a human, including cognitive architectures and neural networks. A set of techniques, including machine learning that is designed to approximate a cognitive task. An artificial system designed to act rationally, including an intelligent software agent or embodied robot that achieves goals using perception, planning, reasoning, learning, communicating, decision-making, and acting. So, unfortunately, it gets worse before it gets better. Most of these definitions have something to do with comparing the machine and the software to the human being. Artificial intelligence is mainly defined as a process that a computer does that normally a human does. By its very definition, AI is doing what humans do. Does this necessarily mean that it replaces you? That remains to be seen. But there's something fundamentally very different about artificial intelligence than any other man-made software that we have created thus far. And the best way to discuss that is to simply quote the CEO of Anthropic, Dario Amodei. In April of 2025, he released an essay on his personal website called The Urgency of Interpretability, and within it, he talks about how artificial intelligence differs greatly from all previously known human-made software. Modern generative AI systems are opaque in a way that fundamentally differs from traditional software. If an ordinary software program does something, for example, a character in a video game says a line of dialogue, or my food delivery app allows me to tip my driver, it does those things because a human specifically programmed them in. Generative AI is not like that at all. When a generative AI system does something, like summarize a financial document, we have no idea at a specific or precise level why it makes the choices it does, why it chooses certain words over others, or why it occasionally makes a mistake despite usually being accurate. As my friend and co-founder Chris Olah is fond of saying, generative AI systems are grown more than they are built. Their internal mechanisms are emergent rather than directly designed. It's a bit like growing a plant or bacterial colony. We set the high-level conditions that direct and shape growth, but the exact structure which emerges is unpredictable and difficult to understand or explain. Looking inside these systems, what we see are vast matrices of billions of numbers. These are somehow computing important cognitive tasks, but exactly how they do so isn't obvious. Many of the risks and worries associated with generative AI are ultimately consequences of this opacity, and would be much easier to address if the models were interpretable. So, artificial intelligence is a computer software program designed to do something that humans normally do. Dario Amodei uses the term grow, and NASA uses the word train. Both of these words describe a process in which we humans are guiding the artificial intelligence to do something that we want it to do rather than directly putting in a command. Normally, we write a line of code that says to do a specific thing, and the computer directly does that specific thing. You hit a hammer with a nail, the nail goes into the wood. That's simple. But with artificial intelligence, it's become far more complex. It's an organism that grows and changes and adapts on its own, making changes to itself. There are various different ways that AIs are grown or trained, and they lead to various different kinds of results. But the bottom line is that an artificial intelligence is something that is learning on its own and that is simply guided by humans. Now, this sounds very, very science fiction, very futuristic. Where we're at is extremely complicated models that are doing extremely complicated, previously thought human exclusive tasks. So Dario Amodei mentioned generative AI several times. So it's important to note that there are several different subcategories of artificial intelligence, all which do different things and are better at different things. So for the bulk of the rest of this podcast, I would like to discuss the different kinds of artificial intelligence that currently exist, what they are currently good at, what they could potentially do in the future, and what the concerns and worries related to each of those is. First is narrow artificial intelligence. This is an artificial intelligence that is given a very specific task and learns to do only that task very well. This is the type of artificial intelligence that has existed, to my knowledge, the longest, and it's the one that's the least controversial. It's the kind of artificial intelligence that we will probably see in the medical field. It's the kind of artificial intelligence that when you watch those fun YouTube videos of an AI learning to walk, that's a narrow artificial intelligence. The only thing it knows how to do is to keep practicing trying to learn to walk. There are a lot of these tools that are starting to get integrated into creative softwares. For example, the AI masking feature in DaVinci Resolve. It's an incredibly robust tool, and it's a very narrow tool. Yes, it uses some machine learning in order to figure out what the subject is in every frame, making it a type of artificial intelligence, but its application is very narrow. All it knows how to do is separate the specific thing that you're selecting from everything else. As far as my research is concerned, unless I'm missing something big, I think we can, in good conscience, lean into using narrow artificial intelligence tools. The second artificial intelligence category that I want to discuss briefly is general or super artificial intelligence. This is defined as different things by different people. Some people say it's when AI gains sentience, which sounds very science fiction, and there's a huge debate on whether or not that's even possible, or philosophically, how we even figure that out. But a more tangible scientific definition would be an artificial intelligence that is significantly better at every single expert human process in every single field. This is something that a lot of experts argue is not only theoretically, but very feasibly possible. And it could have any number of consequences, from huge apocalyptic devastation to beautiful, nearly divine utopia for our society. It just depends who you ask and which podcast you're listening to today. I'm not going to get into all of this philosophy and discussion because most of it is theoretical. We're not dealing with that at the current time. And if it is ever possible, if it ever actually happens, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot that we're going to be able to do about it. So it's unproductive for us right now to worry about such things because they don't exist. And if they ever do, we might be screwed. The scope of general or super artificial intelligence is far too grand for this little podcast, nor is it something that you need to worry about today in your career path. The thing that we really need to discuss is generative artificial intelligence. Generative AI is the one that makes stuff. Photoshop, like DaVinci Resolve, might use a narrow AI to do subject selection. But when you do generative fill in Photoshop, you are asking Photoshop to create pixels that did not previously exist. This creation process, we can debate philosophically what it means and whether or not a human has to do it. But at the end of the day, the artificial intelligence is making things that weren't there before in a way that is convincing to a human. This is generative artificial intelligence. When we talk about AI in pop culture, generative artificial intelligence is usually what we're referring to. There's a lot of different kinds. There's a lot of different companies. This is what all the hype is around. ChatGPT is a large language model. It is a specific type of generative AI designed to mainly understand and manipulate human language. Although obviously it's being expanded and it's doing more and more things really, really efficiently, like coding. And now it's potentially going to be an agent and book your flights for you if you download the browser. Sora 2 is a video generative platform. It creates videos based on text prompts that didn't exist beforehand. Sora 2 specifically has two big features. One, that you can put yourself into the AI-generated image by scanning and using your own face. And secondarily, that it is kind of a TikTok for AI. There's a study done by Mahmoud Shah and Kamran Razak. And this study was called Machine Learning and Deep Learning Paradigms: From Techniques to Practical Applications and Research Frontiers. And it basically tried to analyze and summarize all of the different potential uses of AI, where we're seeing AI start to get integrated and how it could possibly be applied. They studied a bunch of different industries, entertainment being one of them. Obviously, us being creative professionals, we're interested in what these scientists found related to AI applications in the entertainment industry. Here are the deep learning applications for the field of entertainment. Content generation for movies, video games, and music using generative adversarial networks, like Sora. Creating realistic 3D models and environments for virtual reality using deep learning. Personalized recommendations using deep collaborative filtering, e.g. YouTube, Netflix. So yes, even your personalized social media video feed is a type of artificial intelligence, a deep learning, narrow artificial intelligence. The concerns surrounding generative AI are very big. The first one is that it will take jobs. The ways that AI is being applied at this very moment are far too numerous for me to even try to list in this podcast, and new ones are happening every day. The possibilities of AI being used in the creative industry fields is almost incalculable and innumerable, which on the one hand can be exciting Theoretically, it might be possible for a single artist to make an animated film one day, which could be cool. But it also means that the tens of thousands of creative professionals who are currently doing the work might be out of the work. Another major concern related to generative AI is the way that it's been trained. We talked about growing and training artificial intelligence earlier. Well, the way that generative artificial intelligence is trained is essentially it's given huge data sets of pre-existing images and videos, and it breaks it down and then learns to rebuild it. And it does that so many millions or billions of times that it starts to find the patterns between things, and it starts to associate certain textual words with certain visual inputs and outputs, and it starts to figure out this is what this thing generally looks like, which is why when you type into Sora that you want a video of you doing an Easter egg hunt with Santa Claus, it knows what Easter egg hunt and Santa Claus mean, and it's able to come up with a version of that. Of course, most of our visual library as humanity is copyrighted. It is protected by law that the creator of the work has ownership of the work. But artificial intelligence, generative artificial intelligence, was trained on huge data sets that has been proven to include massive amounts of copyrighted work without those copyright holders' permission or authority. In fact, some CEOs have gone so far as to say that the current versions of generative artificial intelligence literally could not exist and would not be possible had they not been able to train off of such large data sets, including the copyrighted work. It's a huge concern for a lot of people, many artists stating that it is outright mass theft on a scale never before seen and never before possible. Another huge concern is knowing what's true. It's so unbelievably easy to make a photorealistic deep fake of a person doing something that they never did without their consent at this point, that how do we know anything that's true on the internet? It's funny and seemingly innocent enough when your mom sends you a random video of a cat doing something a cat could never actually do in real life, thinking that it's real. But what happens when we make pornographic content of people without their consent? What happens when we make videos of political leaders saying things that they've never said? Fortunately, it's still possible to try to find out whether or not something is true. Considering the credibility of the source and considering how many sources cite the event are both good ways of figuring out whether or not something might be generative AI. There are always new videos being released about how to pixel peep, about what generative AI videos currently look like in order to tell them apart from the crowd. But the issue grows more and more severe. So again, it gets worse before it gets better. It looks kind of bleak. I want to quote a couple of studies that have looked into various avenues of artificial intelligence use in various industries. One specifically that looked at artificial intelligence in game design and another that looked at artificial intelligence in cinematography. Both of those studies looked at the ways that artificial intelligence could be applied to that specific field, and they both had similar interesting conclusions. And I'd like to read parts of both of the conclusions from both of those studies. From Intelligent Cinematography, a review of AI research for cinematographic production. In conclusion, generative AI is a powerful tool likely to offer numerous solutions to production and challenges moving forward. However, in parallel, researchers must also address ethical issues. For example, while many publicly available models or online application interfaces incorporate safety measures into their code, like detecting malicious text-based inputs, there are still cases where this is not sufficient for avoiding pornographic content generation. From Generative AI in Game Design, Enhancing Creativity or Constraining Innovation by Sultan Al-Harthi. While these tools enhance ideation, accelerate prototyping, and reduce manual workload, they also raise concerns about originality, authorship, and ethical use of AI-generated content. The urgency of regulation is particularly pressing as generative AI becomes more embedded in creative workflows. Without timely and clear guidance, developers risk navigating legal uncertainty and ethical ambiguity, particularly around intellectual property. Practical interventions at the organizational, educational, and policy levels are essential to ensure that generative AI supports, rather than undermines, the values of authorship, equity, and creative autonomy in game design and development. I took an old coworker and friend out to lunch about a month ago, and we had a long conversation about generative AI and what it means for creative workers. He is even more informed and educated in this field than I am. We as artists have hopes and dreams and goals for our careers, for telling our stories, for creating personal works of deep meaning. We also have the need to make our careers commercially viable, to stay relevant in the marketplace and use our skill sets that we've built up for decades. Generative AI in its current form with all of its unknowns directly threatens both. Unfortunately, this problem is too big for us to be able to know what to do. I would like to leave you with a few thoughts from my friend as to how he is handling artificial intelligence in his career path.
Protecting human jobs is a big one. And the optimist will say, we'll adapt. And I agree, we will. But a lot of people are going to lose their jobs in the meantime. And yes, as a humanity, we will adapt. Individuals, though, are going to suffer in that process. I've been using AI in visual effects for years and rotoscoping people. And that's all AI. And so I've been fine with that, even though, it's costing people, especially overseas, people roto jobs. That used to be something you pay people to do. I don't know.
Yep. I feel like I'm such a hypocrite.
It does. And yet I can't swear off it completely. It feels a little bit like veganism to me. If I was morally consistent and had a strong enough will, I'd be vegan because I see all the problems. I see all the problems in the industry and the harm it causes to animals. And I admire people who are able to be like, no, I'm swearing off. And I haven't done it. And so I see all the problems and yet I still participate. And I think it'll be similar to how people have turned on CG and studios are now, for a long time, they've been promoting movies as no CG.
Even though they are.
Which is, ridiculous.
Have you seen that YouTube series?
Yeah.
No CG, it's just a hidden CG. Yeah, I love that series so much.
But I think it'll be the same thing with AI, where they'll promote movies as not using AI, even though they will. But it'll be made by real humans.
Because right now, most of the AI use that I see that has any practical application at all pretty much leaves everything in the hands of the AI. Whereas we need to get to a point where it is a tool that you're expressing here a little bit more.
Which is why I like that Comfy UI. But I was like, okay, if I'm going to be forced to use AI, I want to take the reign and I want to have control of the whole process. I want to understand what's happening with that stuff of the process. Right. And then it feels a little more artistic.
Unfortunately, right now, it's mostly a list of unknowns, a lot of which have potentially really bad outcomes. AI could have disastrously apocalyptic consequences, the likes of which we've never seen. Conversely, it also could just be the next big technological evolution, not unlike the computer revolution. In my opinion, the most helpful and practical approach for creative professionals to take regarding generative AI is to assume that the AI revolution is similar to the computer revolution. I choose to believe that generative artificial intelligence will not completely replace the creative professional or the artist, but that it will require significant adaptation and a completely different marketplace in a few years. Pick what it is that you're good at and you absolutely love to do, and see if there are ways to use narrow artificial intelligence tools to make yourself faster. Then research generative AI as much as possible and see what line you're willing to draw in terms of how to use it ethically for yourself. It's a big, big, scary world out there, but education empowers.